all of those conversations around the table with our family and friends, you know, some knowledge sharing, truth telling, and if we're lucky, some mutual understanding. And today on the O, we have just that, a multi-generational panel here to tell it like it is from their unique point of view.
I loved growing up in D.C. It was Chocolate City. It's no longer Chocolate City. It's chocolate, vanilla, and strawberry.
True American patriot accepts that all are created equal. I'm true to the creed. And I'm willing to sacrifice to ensure that all have liberty and justice. So I'm willing to do that. That's what makes me a true American patriot.
There are many strategies that our generation could use from older generations. So while we may technology-wise be further ahead, there's a wisdom that sometimes it's like we're lacking.
I'm so thankful for applications like Skype and Facebook where I can always be in contact with my friends. However, when I am with my friends or with my family, I find that my generation and younger generations are always on their phones.
Millennials, we can try to reach out more to baby boomers and teach them.
Do you do it?
I could do a better job.
And do you want it?
Who are my friends and who are my associates in the real world?
Right.
So online, do they become associates?
Hello, I'm Ebony McMorris, and welcome to a very special edition of the O. Driving our discussion today, I've got a baby boomer, a Generation Xer, and two millennials. So let's meet our great panel. To my left, I have Tim Pulliam of the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation, Mallory Butler, student at the University of Edinburgh, Scotland, Harry Jones, curator at the African American Civil War Memorial Freedom Foundation and Museum, and Tony Jackson, Miss Senior DC 2014. There's no doubt that Washington, D.C. is changing from the rise of luxury apartments to the mix of cultural restaurants. Many are worried, however, that Chocolate City ain't so chocolate no more. But is this a bad thing? And race, is there such a thing as a post-racial society? And what should be done to better race relations in America? So let's start our discussion. So I love talking about Chocolate City. So let me just throw out some numbers. In the 70s, DC was 70% African American. And in 2011, we saw startling numbers that said it's now dropped to 50%, and it kind of teeters a little less and a little over 50%, and it's ruffled a lot of feathers for that. So should we be upset that the demographics, well, this gentrification, sometimes I feel like it's a nice way of saying it, that we're seeing such a change in the demographics of DC? Tim, I'll start with you.
And gentrification sounds like such a bad word, but in my opinion, it's a good thing as well. I mean, it has improved DC. You just mentioned the luxury high-rise condos and restaurants are beautiful. And that's one reason why I wanted to move to D.C.
Right,
to be
you're
a part of
not
that.
from D.C.
I'm not from D.C.
Not
I'm
from
from
DC.
North Carolina, from the South.
Okay.
Wanted to get to D.C. because I was just in love with the gentrification. But I understand the heritage with the 70% black population. So I can understand why some people would be, you know, disheartened when they hear that it's dwindling.
Okay. So Mallory, you're from D.C.
I am from D.C.,
Okay.
yes.
So you're from D.C. Harry, are you from D.C.?
No, I'm from Oklahoma.
You're from Oklahoma, and where are you from?
I am from D.C. I'm a native Washingtonian.
Native Washingtonian. So I want to hear from my D.C. people, just for a quick, quick second, because you grew up in the area. And Mallory, let me ask you first, how do you feel about gentrification? What area did you grow up in also?
I grew up in Chevy Chase, D.C.
Okay.
Yeah. So I lived abroad for a couple years in middle school, and now I go to university abroad, as you all know. But I have just fallen in love with DC all over again since I've come back for vacations. And honestly, I was ready to leave after high school. But now that I've come back, I keep going out with my friends and looking into new places around town and kind of going out on these adventures and just finding these wonderful places that really were nothing 10 years ago when I was growing up here. So now I'm just I just finished an internship at the DC Commission on the Arts and Humanities, met some wonderful people there, and that area near Navy Yard is just beautiful now. It's just gorgeous, and there are some wonderful stores, wonderful people, and it's given people job opportunities.
I want to, let me talk to you, Ms. Jackson, because the biggest issue, I think, when we're talking about this is that you got a lot of people from D.C. that cannot afford to now live in a city that they grew up in. So while everything is beautiful, we got lights on New York Avenue. I remember that, U Street has completely changed. There are lines all around Ben's Chili Bowl. For some, it's disheartening because now a city that they love, they can't live in anymore.
That's absolutely true. I loved growing up in DC, it was Chocolate City. It's no longer Chocolate City. It's chocolate, vanilla, and strawberry. And it is something that has helped the economy. The whole purpose of gentrification is that people come in, developers come in, you raise the income level, you increase your tax base for the city, and then you can do more things with the city. But of course, there are those who can't afford to live, who have now migrated to other areas. For myself, as a senior resident, I've seen seniors on my block who've owned their homes for 50 years, and now their houses are being sold for hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Right. Harry, let me ask you this, because I'm going to take this and kind of bring it into race relations as well. So piggybacking off of gentrification, I want to kind of talk about race relations. What we're seeing in this post-racial society. So post-racial means basically devoid of racism, which many people say that's not true. And because of the recent incidents in Charleston at the AME Church and what we're seeing in other cities, how can we still use that term? And even with gentrification, how do you see the term post-racial?
Well, gentrification, in the way we speak of it, is often made into a racial discussion.
Right.
As opposed to being what it really is, which is economic disparities, as was mentioned. Caste in the United States, caste is black and white. And we have a caste system that sometimes will confuse us when dealing with issues. So an impoverished European American, an impoverished African American are in the same condition. However, they're in different castes.
Yes.
One's white, one black, the white-black caste. And so that confuses us. As long as that caste exists, we will interpret gentrification as race, and we cannot be post-racial because we're maintaining the caste system.
So how do we deal with situations like Charleston? How do we deal with situations like Baltimore? Because we still have people throwing that out. And we didn't really start hearing post-racial until after President Barack Obama got elected.
Well, how do we deal with them? We deal with them by breaking up the caste system, which is very difficult for us because we are in love with black and white. People who call themselves black, they're black and beautiful, they're proud.
We gotta go to a break. I love this, like Chocolate City post-racial discussions, and definitely love what we're hearing this morning. But we have to take a quick break. Up next, we'll discuss patriotism and why studies show that millennials are least likely to support those stars and stripes.
So Harry, I was reading an article
Yeah.
just this morning.
Welcome back to the O. According to a study conducted by the Pew Research Center, only 49% of millennials reported being patriotic. For Generation Xers, it's 64%, and baby boomers a whopping 75%. So what do you say, panel, before we go into that, because I really want to know if you are proud to be an American and what that means to you. I want to touch back on race really quickly, and you were talking about, Harry, you're talking about a caste system, and Tim and I know you want to jump in really quickly, where we're talking about how do we begin to solve these problems, and really, can we live together in society, African Americans and Caucasians and different races, happily?
We have to break from the caste system if we're going to do it. But blacks are proud of being blacks because because they're proud people, and they countered the counterculture of being inferior with a pride redefining black. And whites are proud of being white. And all of this brings about division. If it was a football team, we wouldn't want them playing. But actually in our country, in the bureaucracy, in the military, we bring them together as blacks and whites, and this caste still works. And so we have all these divisions, we can't solve problems because we see ourselves as different people.
Tim, you wanted to jump in?
I was just going to add to your fact about gentrification, that it's not a black-white thing, it's an economic thing. When you look at Prince George's County, a lot of affluent blacks moved in, they saw that as an opportunity. It moved the poor whites out. So it just goes back to this being an economic thing. I
want to talk about patriotism now. So especially when we're talking about millennials. So those were some big differences in the numbers. And when we talk about millennials, when millennials were coming of age, they're seeing like the recession and what happened. And then you're looking at government, the effect of government. And so, Mallory, how do you, I don't think most people say they wouldn't be proud to be necessarily an American, but how do you how do you, is your idea of an American different now, or your view on that different?
Well, you know, I think I grew up in DC and I went to the international high school here. So most of my friends, their families are from abroad, they live abroad now. So I was kind of raised in this environment where, you know, being American is wonderful, but other cultures are just so enriching as well. And travel is such a wonderful thing for my generation, for our generation. So I think I wouldn't necessarily say that I'm proud to be an American. I'm proud to have been born here with traditional roots. And I've just been raised in this environment that race relations, you know, we are of the human race. That is, period. That is what we are.
I'm surprised by the statistic, that 49% statistic, because I feel like when President Barack Obama was, you know, elected, that made me feel much more American because I saw someone that looked like me. So the only reason why I can think that someone feels less patriotic is, well, millennials, is because they want to remove those labels, like Raven Simone. She doesn't want to consider herself African American.
Tiger Woods,
exactly.
Caucasian. But, you know, even First Lady Michelle Obama, you know, she caught a lot of flack. I'm trying to remember what the speech was when she was talking about how great America is, but then there was some things that she was disappointed with. And so people were like, how dare you speak against your country?
Well, I think there's some disappointment between all of us with the direction that America has gone for different reasons. But I think the difference between my generation, the baby boomers, is that we came of age after the World Wars, where everyone was proud to be an American and what they had accomplished in the wars. And we were raised that way. Every morning we went to school and we said the Pledge of Allegiance, and we sang patriotic songs, My Country 'Tis of Thee, Great Land of Liberty. We did that every day. Those things don't occur anymore. And that was ingrained in our psyche. Now, true, other things happened, like the Vietnam War that came along, that caused us to have, you know, some shortcomings in our feelings about being American, as well as there's some fear as to the way the rest of the world sees us now.
So can you become so loyal that you become delusional?
Well, I'm a true American patriot.
Okay.
But I'm not always proud of the behavior of myself and America as Americans.
Okay.
A true American patriot accepts that all are created equal. I'm true to the creed. And I'm willing to sacrifice to ensure that all have liberty and justice. So I'm willing to do that. That's what makes me a true American patriot. Then there are the delusional who think that they're deployed overseas, for example, to make the world safe for democracy. No, you're not. You're keeping trade lanes open. That's what you're doing. And this is not a patriotic endeavor in that you're keeping trade lanes open. So this idea of the ideal America is what I love. That makes you a jingoist, a chauvinist. It's a blind allegiance. A true patriot is logical. And I think what we see in the millennial generation are people who have the potential of being true patriots because they're not delusional.
And they can evaluate what's going on. So they can look to see what happened, and even before the baby boomers, traditionalists, the baby boomers, Generation X, and say, you know what, let me go back and reevaluate how we can bring this country back to our core values, and how to also incorporate others. Because, you know, when we talk about America, we're also talking about the biggest issue now we're dealing with is immigration. So you know, we can't have necessarily this one-sided view, and I think some people feel like their different cultures have not been recognized.
I must come in when we say immigration. I'm still wondering how a Mexican coming into old Mexico can be an immigrant. I'm still trying to figure that out. The war in 1846 ought not establish these borders this clearly.
Absolutely. Do you feel, you know, when we talk about as a millennial, when I say the American dream to you now, how would you and Mallory describe that?
The American dream.
You know what? You got 10 seconds.
Oh, gosh.
We got to go to break.
Well,
I think that, at least for millennials, the American dream has completely changed. I think people want to get married a lot later, sometimes have kids, sometimes even just be in a partnership and not actually get married.
So
it's more individual.
It's much more individual
That
and
me,
without
me,
labels.
me.
I gotta go get it.
Free.
Absolutely.
We got to go to break. Up next, our panel will weigh in on technology, social media, and its influence on each generation. Don't log out. We'll be back with more of the O. Welcome back to the O. The use of technology has become rooted in American culture. Some are in favor of a tech-driven society, and some can't live without it, while others are shying away from the digital world. But why? And how can you help the baby boomers in your life become savvy seniors, tech seniors? That's if they really want to. So I love talking about this because now it's about how we all, communicate, and it really, to me, shows you the difference in the generations when we're talking about society. So as far as social networking, for you, Tim.
It's so important. It's how you stay up on what's going on. And I just have to mention, with the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation, we have this annual legislative conference every September, and we're constantly giving out these program books because majority of our users are baby boomers. But the millennials, we want digital. We don't want paper.
Right.
And so we're trying to shift. Do
you take some objection with this young man over here?
I do and I don't, because I am a baby boomer who is trying to stay current.
All right.
Good.
But I know that I have a paper issue. We do like getting a piece of paper in our hands, and we're not as savvy or as quick in manipulating the digital so that we can get that information from you as quickly as we would like. But I believe that we need to keep trying to stay abreast of what's going on. We can't just turn, which some seniors do. They turn a blind eye to it and say they're not going to do it.
I'm going to throw something in here. Martin Luther King, and this is like loosely quoting. He said a quote to talk about technology, and it said that we have learned to fly like birds of the air, and fly basically like planes. So we've learned so much as far as technology, but the only thing that we have done is the more we learn, the more morality that we kind of lose. Do you kind of feel that way? And I'll go to you for this, Harry.
Is that what's happened? Now we're returning. It's this tautology. Now we're going to get back to the morality. So will the social media make us more aware of our fellow persons that we couldn't touch and feel them, but now we can touch and feel them digitally? And so will we become more aware and therefore more moral? So yes, when it was technology that caused us to fly and defy nature, but now this technology is allowing us to reach out and touch.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. Mallory, how do you feel as far as, seniors in your life? And I hate putting that term like that, but how we can communicate better, because this is one thing I really do believe. There are many strategies that our generation could use from older generations. So while we may technology-wise be further ahead, there's a wisdom that sometimes it's like we're lacking. Do you feel that way? And how can we help bridge that gap?
Right, so as somebody who goes to university abroad but whose family home has been in DC and will probably always be in DC, I'm so thankful for applications like Skype and Facebook where I can always be in contact with my friends. However, when I am with my friends or with my family, I find that my generation and younger generations are always on their phones. They're making friends out of Siri, which is just part of their Apple iPhones, and they're completely neglecting the social relations around them, which is
are
really
they really
sad
friends?
to see.
Because when you look have we changed
really
also
friends.
the definition of what a friend
Have we
is?
changed the
Thank you.
definition of
A friend, right.
A friend is not just somebody whose name pops up, and that drives me crazy.
You decide to click on
I
confirm
don't
or
know
delete.
you. I don't know. You're the 10th person removed from the person that I knew on Facebook. You are not my friend. Friend is a deep relationship.
But it's true. Are we getting away from deep? Are we becoming more shallow? Much smarter, but more shallow.
We are becoming less engaging, but I have to feel like, millennials, we can try to reach out more to baby boomers and teach them.
Do you do it?
I could do a better job.
And do you want it?
Who are my friends? And who are my associates in the real world?
Right.
So online, do they become associates? They become friends. I'll actually say that leap to becoming a friend, I might not even be aware of it. So it can happen on social media, it can happen
You mean
in
you
real
have a
life.
friend and you don't realize that they're your friend?
Yeah, until something happens. Then I go like, oh, they're trustworthy, because ultimately a friend is trustworthy, and without being tested, I don't know for sure.
Yeah, it takes a long time to develop a real, true friend. You just don't do it
Can't do it
overnight.
online?
No, you can't do
But
it.
I've made
It might
friends
happen
through
online.
It
Facebook.
might. People got married and developed all,
I've made friends through Facebook, and then we met in person, and we realized that we gelled, and we became good friends. So it happens.
Maybe do you feel like maybe your generation, maybe baby boomers are a little closed-minded when it comes to that, or do you feel that we're a little narrow-minded when we come?
When if I speak myself, my lack of study has made me less competent than I'd like to be. So I can't make a judgment with my lack of competence. So if I study it more and use it, then I can make a better judgment.
And I think I'm not really going to spend enough time online in social media. I'm not going to be checking my phone all day, staring at, and I wonder, what are you looking at?
That is so funny.
Just
Mallory,
Videos.
you've studied abroad a lot, so and we're kind of coming to the end, but do you think that, I want to look at it from the standpoint of Americans, versus, other groups when we talk about social media and older groups, do you see when you were abroad that it was more accepting or it was not, or more traditional?
I think when you're in university especially, people are always on Twitter. People are on applications like Yik Yak, which is kind of a new groundbreaking application. And everybody is a lot more socially connected. But as someone who has a 70-year-old father, I love to learn from him and to sit around and read books with him and hear stories from him, rather than trying to show him a video that he's probably not going to remember. He's not going to probably know how to look it up later.
Right.
But that's okay, because moments together doing anything on the computer or anything else are valuable, and that's what matters.
I think you can do both and bridge the gap both ways. So you can have a conversation, dialogue, but you can also show him your gadgets so he can kind of, usher him into our generation a little bit,
So 30 seconds, we're coming to an end, but really quickly. So we have these millennials, Generation Xers, baby boomers, the next one is Generation Z. Right? So the big question is, how are they going to be affected by all of this? And which generation could they mimic in turn? Right.
Wow.
Get you on that.
And every following generation is the responsibility of the generations that came before them.
Absolutely.
So whatever X becomes, we can actually contribute to it.
I like it. Well, that's a wrap. So that's all the time we have for this edition of The O. Thanks to our panelists for joining us today. I'm Ebony McMorris. Catch you next time on The O.